Yes, thank you. It's wonderful to be back in Hungary. In 1997, the Phenomenon of Singing International Symposium was launched as an integral part of Festival 500. Susan Knight, who is, I'm thrilled, is here today, proposed the concept of an international choral festival to mark the 500th anniversary of the arrival of the Europeans to our province, Newfoundland and Labrador, the most eastern province in Canada. Susan's idea evolved into an extraordinary international choral event which continued to 2013. And I encourage you to attend Susan's session tomorrow, where she will share her thoughts about the next chapter of Sharing the Voices. Singing in Newfoundland and Labrador has been and continues to be an integral part of community life, a way of celebrating, mourning, documenting events, telling the stories. As a result, the concept of Festival 500 was conceived around the ethos of singing as community, hence the subtext, sharing the voices. This notion of community was celebrated at many levels and in a variety of ways. The non-competitive nature of the festival, the commitment to artistic excellence and cross-cultural sharing, and the team approach to direction. The idea of sharing an academic symposium with a choral festival was unique at the time. Too many of us had participated in academic conferences where you didn't hear a note of music making and had attended choral festivals which were entirely performance-based. This new model provided a rare opportunity to fuse theory and practice in the same event. And I should say that most of the images are from the festival and the symposium. Susan invited Douglas Dunsmore and me to be founding artistic directors with her, and Andrea Rose was the founding director of the symposium. Since 1999, Andrea and I have been co-directors of the symposium, and the festival and symposium have been biennial events occurring every 2 years. And so, since beginning in 1997, we have had 9 extraordinary symposia, gatherings for joyful, unique, and memorable music, artistic, social, and cultural experiences. The symposium provided a platform for sharing of research, knowledge, experience, and practice related to singing and song. The purpose was to gather international expertise and provide a forum for interdisciplinary discourse and performance, the dissemination of research, and the generation of further knowledge related to the phenomenon of singing. Each symposium consisted of an illustrious group of invited speakers and jury-selected presenters who addressed focus areas of singing such as artistic, physiological, cultural, sociological, historical, pedagogical, psychological, and compositional. Through the presentation of research papers, roundtable and panel discussions, lecture demonstrations, recitals, and other cameo performances, the symposium engaged scholars, performers, pedagogues, historians, scientists, linguists, sociologists, and psychologists in exciting dialogue, debate, and artistry. The breadth and depth of research and performance have been outstanding. The symposia have provided a unique venue for scholars from diverse disciplines to meet and network. This disciplinary cross-fertilization was an unexpected bonus and has resulted over time in some unexpected connections and collaborations. Following each symposium, researchers were invited to submit their papers for publications in the proceedings for that particular event. The first 5 volumes were published in print form and the remaining 4 in an electronic publication format. I'm very happy to announce, and you are the first to hear this news, that all 9 volumes of the proceedings are now available online through Memorial University Library's Electronics Journal platform. And of particular interest is the inclusion of the 2011 and 13 invited keynote presentations in video format within this e-publication. I provided the URL for the publication on the back of your handout and invite you to browse through these volumes, you know, the way we used to do in the library. when you would go to the stacks and just, you never knew what you might find. Now, today I find that students just want to do everything online, and they don't have that wonderful opportunity for serendipity in finding something unusual. This body of work from 9 symposia represents a substantial and impressive compilation of some of the finest research related to singing and the voice. And so, when I received the call for papers for this symposium on singing and music education, I thought it would be interesting to use the research presented throughout all nine of our Canadian symposia to see what trends and threads might be useful for this Hungarian symposium. In particular, what researchers over the last 16 years are discovering about people singing together as adults after formal schooling. In examining over 500 papers and presentations, the following topics and categories emerged related to adults singing together. Why do adults sing together? Where do adults sing together? Restorative choral singing, why some adults don't sing, senior choirs, multisensory choral experiences, extreme choirs, improvisational choirs, and special interest choirs. On the handout, I've provided the titles of the papers related to each of these categories, along with the names of the researchers and the year of publication. I will discuss each of these categories, highlighting some of the findings and questions from individual papers. We all know that singing is less prevalent in people's lives. That's not from the festival. That wasn't the choir. We tried for we tried for many years to get someone from the biology department who was studying whales to do something on the singing of whales. We thought this would be our logo was a whale, and we thought this would be brilliant, but we never had anyone take up the challenge. We know that singing is less prevalent in people's lives now than it was in the last century, and speculation about the demise of singing in people's lives ranges from the role of radio, television, and social media to urbanization to the rise of the expert performer. Several studies address singing in our everyday lives. Catherine Smitheram's narrative study shares the stories of 20 girls and women, 2 representing each decade of the 20th century, ranging from preschoolers to women in their 90s. The stories provide insight into the place of singing and songs in their spiritual life, their emotional life, their social life, their patriotic life, and their family life. Catherine concludes that in everyday life, singing alone and with others is cultural, historical, pedagogical, and artistic. Wanting to investigate the decline in the number of men singing in church and community choirs, Laurie Ann Dolliff posed the question, why do men participate in choral singing rather than the usual, why don't men participate in choral singing? This is a case study of one man who is in his 6th decade of singing. Here we get a glimpse into what it means to be an individual, what it means to an individual to sing through the stages of life, through illness and the development of a speech impediment, and through several near-death experiences. The study celebrates our connection to song as a means of living our lives. And we all know stories like this. They just need to be told and documented. There is no question that choral singing is grounded in community, in shared experience that is simultaneously a sense of belonging as well as outreach, a dimension of being at home and of reaching out to be a home to and for others. The outreach function of choral groups may then move into the realm of becoming a musical experience that is linked to our common human quest for meaning. This becomes a process not only of finding and expressing one's own authentic voice, but also of hearing that voice within a greater context. If you haven't seen yet Stacey Horn's TED Talk, Montclair, it's one of the regional TED Talks, about her experiences of joining a community choir, I highly recommend this personal story of how Stacey realizes that singing in a choir is part of being, is part of something that is greater than yourself. Just Google TED Talk singing in a choir, and you will find her. Stacey Horn is her name. I was thinking we would play it, but we don't have enough time. Deanna Yarchuk unpacks safety and risks within community singing. Believing that community singing can be safe without being comfortable, she explores the potential for possibility of risk for singers as they brush up against the edge of what they know and are comfortable doing within an ensemble. She argues that there is a healthy tension between safety and discomfort, which results in sites of troubled learning for participants, moving beyond the technical aspects of vocal skills building towards fostering transformative learning through song. Lee Willingham and Debbie Ludoff are studying the ability of choral singing to create a community for a cause. Sing Fires of Justice, a community choral event, provides a model where soulful, relevant, respectful, and inclusive community is created, and the lives and beliefs of the singers are transformed through that experience. I should say that if you're interested in this aspect of community singing, Lee is doing a session tomorrow related to this topic. Kay Kleimerman uses voice as a metaphor for personal leadership development, as she explores singing as a transformative learning process toward developing leadership qualities in young women. The use of narrative inquiry provides a useful tool for investigating what meaning choristers make of their singing experiences. Repeatedly, researchers reported that singing together not only has extraordinary potential for transforming lives, but that it actually does foster self-knowledge and mastery, a sense of power, well-being, and agency. The power of narratives and stories is quite extraordinary. During the 2013, last summer's symposium, we organized a panel to explore fresh ways to build choral community through our sung stories, chaired by Marian Dolan. The panel included Bob Chilcott, Kathy Rami, Elena Charkova, Kelly Walsh, Mia Makarov, you'll recognize some of these names, Francesco Nunez, Tim Sharp, and Gabor Moshar. You can hear all of these stories online. This is one of the new features of our publication. They are truly remarkable. I especially recommend Gabor's story about how he came to have a career change as a result of singing in the Budapest Monteverdi Choir. It's really quite stunning. Oh, I'm ahead of myself. In considering today's topic, non-formal music learning opportunities after school, I've divided the opportunities as represented in our symposium into three categories: church choirs, community choirs, and recreational singing. Although church attendance across North America has declined significantly during the past 50 years, the church choir remains a viable opportunity for many adults who enjoy choral singing. It is not surprising that several researchers explored the role of singing in the spiritual lives of church choir members and found that singing was a critical part of many choristers' spiritual lives. As a church musician myself, I took the opportunity to research shared understandings about why people keep singing in church choirs. 3 women in my church choir at Cochrane Street United Church had sung together in the same choir for 60 years.
And will sound.
We're not commenting on the sound, okay? Their narratives reveal that long-term participation in a choir is grounded in social interaction, meaning, and communication in a specific setting. Gordon Adams investigated an ongoing but largely unnoticed conundrum for church musicians in contemporary Christian congregational singing: the tension between performing and worshiping. Or, as Gordon puts it, the conflicting authenticities between performance authenticity and personal authenticity deemed to be required for really worshiping. So, although there continue to be worship wars surrounding church music, the church choir is still an essential and important ensemble for adults to experience choral singing, at least in North America. I don't know what the situation is elsewhere. By far, the most accessible informal music opportunity after school is the community choir. And we will look at some new and exciting choral ensembles within this category later. But first, what are the benefits of singing in a community choir? Lee Willingham's qualitative study concludes the effects of singing in the community choir center around 4 ideas. Singers strongly profess to belonging to a community. They self-identified with being in the choir. They experienced restoration and healing through music making, and they reported a degree of discernment and connoisseurship within the art form. A truly fascinating community choir exists in Victoria, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada, the Getting Higher Choir. Mary Kennedy studied this 300-plus member organization where musical teaching and learning happens in both formal and informal contexts and venues. Embodying the idea that singing is our birthright, the choir welcomes new members at the beginning of each season, September and February. There is no audition, no vocal experience required, just a desire to sing in harmony with others. The goal is to reintegrate singing into the daily routine of life. So, the choir is divided into 3 chapters, each practicing the same material on different nights of the week to match your own personal schedule. Courses are welcome to choose the night that works best for them. They are even encouraged to come a second night and sing a different part. Repertoire is 4-part, a cappella, traditional, and world music. Singing in concerts is optional, with 2/3 or more of the members singing the concert, with many of the rest enjoying the concert in the audience. Mary's interest in studying the Getting Higher Choir was to glean both teachers and strategies for both teachers and students in more formal settings. I've called the third category of choirs, which emerged from the papers and presentations, recreational singing. Here, singing together is not necessarily intended for performance, but is experienced as singing in the moment. Victoria Moon Joyce is concerned with creating a space where adults feel they have a rightful place to explore their singing voices. She explores the concepts of exclusivity, of musical literacy, how notions of respectability exert itself as an organizing and defining influence in how people make choices around music making, and how individuals view themselves as singers or non-singers came to be organized socially, culturally, historically, and developmentally. Victoria ends her paper with this quote from Bernice Johnson Reagan, the scholar of the role of singing among African Americans to build community and strengthen solidarity for themselves. You cannot sing a song and not change your condition. Equal to the notion of building community through singing together is the concept of the restorative benefits of singing together. A number of studies investigated choral singing and well-being, improved breathing, enhanced immune system function, and reduced distress. The growth of choirs in specific communities where singing together is determined to be the key factor in changing lives is outstanding, from an amateur singing ensemble for women with eating disorders, to a choir at a workforce center for adults with developmental disabilities, to a choir of developmentally challenged adults. Singing together empowered individuals physiologically, socially, and artistically. Several of the studies in this category identified the professionalization of singing as a concern. Music making in general, and singing in particular, is professionalized to the point that only a few talented individuals are defined as singers. The rest believe that they should not sing, or even worse, that they cannot sing. This reluctance to sing can be exacerbated when opportunities to participate in the enjoyment and performance of music are superseded by the impact of poverty, homelessness, mental illness, and the constellation of challenges that for many people defines life. For these groups, not having the opportunity to sing can be viewed as a metaphor for the silencing of voices through the oppression of marginalization. Our capacity to make and enjoy music defines us collectively and strengthens our sense of belonging in the community. Some choral conductors have discovered that if the so-called marginalized populations are presented with an opportunity to make a more intentional relationship with singing within a safe place of acceptance, the results can be transformative. 3 populations which have experienced tremendous success in finding their voices are homeless persons, prison inmates, and community service centers. Betty Bailey and Jane Davidson explored the adaptive potential for group singing with a choir of homeless men and suggest that group singing may act to alleviate depression, improve social interaction skills, and promote ordered thinking. And this is a still from a movie, and I forget the name of it, but it's something about Christmas song or something like that. But it's about a homeless choir. It's based on a true story in Montreal of a homeless choir. And so, if you're interested in movies, are always, I think, kind of nice to see these ideas in another format. Mary Cohen studied a joint inmate volunteer prison choir and found through self-reported experiences of the participants that the choir helped them forget their problems, gave them a sense of accomplishment, and helped them achieve a higher level of interpersonal skills. Ron McLennan and Helen Murphy documented how members of the Stella Bury Community Center, and that's, I'm proud to say, is in our city, were empowered by their participation in the inclusion choir. One of the members said, "We come together and we are included. We are people here and not our issues." One of the most fascinating and moving keynote presentations we ever experienced was the one given by Kate Munger, a singer-songwriter who has devoted her life to healing through the power of song. Kate founded a choir for women who are called to sing at the bedsides of people who are dying or are in a coma, children in hospital, and with women who are incarcerated. Her choir, Threshold Choir, provides a space for women to learn and practice repertoire, which they will then sing in groups of 3 or 4 to those who accept their offer. The choir never performs as a conventional choir. It's just a place, a rehearsal. And I have a video here that we will, of Kate with a group.
Brought you in the wrong place. Let's start again. My whole life is about helping people, mostly women, reclaim their voices.
I just wanted to share that my friend Robin did pass away about 10 days ago.
And be singing because it's our tribal inheritance to sing together. It's an honor to be in this room. I love this room. I wish I had eyes in the back of my head. A mother's heartbeat is the first sound that each of us hears. We think. And it feels to me that women's bodies are the guardians of life entering this world, and it feels right that we would be the guardians of the gate out. It's such a delight to sing songs that members of the choir have written. Can't tell you.
Kate,
oh yeah.
Some of us newbies are going to have to cheat and use the book.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. Sailing to steady hand upon the guiding the sailor.
There is no audition process to join the choir. All I ask is that you feel the shiver when you hear about our work. That seems to have been enough.
The entire planet is filled with love.
There's a lot of dissonance in it, and the dissonance comes together, but then it resolves. And that's the process. peace isn't like one thing, right? It's like this living thing that, and even when you're dying, it's not like you're just alive and then you're dying. It's this living process.
To imagine what it might feel like to be in a bed with life diminishing, with the passing days approaching your death, is a challenging thing to do. Thank you, Nancy. So I bring this reclining chair to rehearsals so we can take turns being the recipient of our singing so that we know exactly what it is that we're giving, and so that we can help each other sing as softly and as intentionally and with such centeredness so that the person sitting in the chair not only hears the music with their ears but feels it making the hairs stand up on their arms and hears it through their whole body.
And we pray.
The important thing, I think, is that we're singing a cappella at a bedside. And singing to me is an ultimately human offering.
In heart and in eye clear.
It's something that I believe our bodies are designed to do. We're tubes. We're glorified, fabulous tubes that sound whistles through when air passes through.
Calling all angels, walk me through this one. Don't leave me alone.
Our first client was a lovely woman, a musician, who, while she was terminally ill, she lived for 9 months, and we sang to her weekly and had a strong relationship with her. So when she died, 6 choir members sat and sang for her in a vigil for hours and hours and hours. And she gave us tremendous feedback.
We're trying, we're hoping.
That our singing was calming and uplifting and something she knew she wanted to have when her time came.
Circle of angels is incredible.
I think we make an agreement when we come into these bodies that death is going to be a mystery.
When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice.
The human voice can sound so calming and so sweet and so tender at a bedside. It's a delight.
We walk not into the night, we walk but toward the stars. We walk not into the night, we walk but toward the stars. We walk not into the night, we walk but toward the stars. We walk not into the night, we walk but toward the stars.
There are over 100 of threshold choirs in, I believe, 6 countries now. So it's I think, a very important endeavor. When considering singing opportunities after school, all too often we hear about individuals who self-designate as non-singers. Susan Knight had presented 2 papers investigating the genesis, implications, prevention, and intervention of the adult non-singer, who she prefers, and I think this is brilliant, to consider as a pre-singer. Not content with only researching a situation as it exists, Susan is committed to a pedagogy of remediation and skill development. Colleen Whitten's study identifies the emotional outcome in later life of negative childhood experiences of singing, which have adversely affected participation in singing and their concept of self as a singer. Victoria Moon Joyce questions whether adults who identify as non-singers really have made a choice not to sing, or whether their sense of disenfranchisement has roots in social, historical, religious, and cultural forces beyond their control. Whatever the cause or choice, there are far too many adult non-singers, and there is a wealth of research evidence to suggest that teachers and schooling play a prominent role in many adults feeling they cannot sing. Victoria Moon Joyce begins one of her papers with these sentences. It is said that in a world where everyone makes art, there are no artists. So it would follow that in a community where everyone sings, there are no singers. The creation of singers requires exclusionary practices. In order to have singers, a culture has to produce non-singers. The formation of singing subjects is wholly dependent upon the formation of non-singers. So, how can we create a community where everyone sings, just like everyone talks, everyone eats, everyone walks, everyone runs? Then we will have no need for the designation non-singer and the requisite, we will have no need for the designation singer and the requisite non-singer. I've been fascinated as to how many times this topic has been mentioned already here in the symposium. It has extraordinary implications, I think, for adults singing together after schooling. Similar to restorative choirs, another category that emerged is the interest in group singing for seniors. This should not be surprising, given the demographics in many parts of the world. We have a large portion of the population who now have the time and money to do exactly what they want to do. Studies focused on both the challenges of the aging voice and the extraordinary benefits and enjoyment of seniors singing with other seniors. Seniors have often been considered liabilities in the choral world. Women more so than men. However, more and more voice teachers are working with seniors to address the physical challenges related to singing. Hearing loss, hormonal changes, respiratory limitations, memory loss, vocal production. But the benefits far outweigh the physical challenges. Singing through the aging process reminds me a lot of the shift in thinking that happened with adolescent boys evolving voices. For decades, boys were told to stop singing. It was going to be damaging to them. But now we know that it's much better to continue singing through the evolution. And I think the same thing is happening with seniors. We mustn't, perhaps like sex, there's no need to give up singing in your golden years. In his 2013 keynote presentation, Tim Sharp spoke about an experience he had with senior choirs in China in 2010 and the impact these choirs and other special interest choirs are having in his organization, the American Choral Directors Association, as they look at core innovations. And we have a little clip.
Outside of ACDA is something that blew my mind last year. Last year I went to judge in Beijing and was assigned the topic of judging senior adult or senior citizen choirs. And I had the assignment of judging 100 senior adult choirs. I thought, shoot me now. What is this going to be? I went into that with all kinds of, now I see lots of choirs in the United States, I see choirs around the world, but I thought judging 100 choirs that were in that category was not going to be a pleasant way to spend my time in China. Well, my take home was that it blew me away. The choirs were incredible. The number of choirs and the numbers in those choirs were incredible. And I came back to the US realizing that this very tsunami of the demographics that were happening in the United States is going to be exactly what I saw in China. And that we aren't prepared at all for the number of people that want to spend their leisure, discretionary time singing on through life. And we're just not ready for it. We haven't started the conversation in the US about it. But China had not only the festival, but they had already talked about the pedagogy, they had been dealing with the literature, and they were moving way, way, way down the road. And I was completely energized in thinking for a core innovation in the United States, one of the top areas that we have to be concerned about, lifelong singing, our member said, was in this area of older singers and continuing to have choral experiences.
Yeah, I think that we're going to hear a lot more about this genre of choral activity. What we saw in 2 recent movies, Quartet and Unfinished Song, I think is just the beginning. We're all going to be singing together in our respective personal care facilities very soon. I want to highlight several other trends that emerged through symposium presentations. The first is what one researcher called multisensory choral experience and another called choral theater. Many of you are probably familiar with what I think is the extraordinary work that Carmina Silic has done with her women's ensemble Carmina Slovenica. With choragi, vocal theater, this choral ensemble has really opened up what it means to be a choir and has developed complex multimedia events. And if you don't know her work, just go to, there are lots of videos about the work that they are doing. In Canada, Christina Murray and Claire Legere in Halifax are working with theater techniques, feminist theology, and integrated performance studies to propose a feminist, ritualized, and embodied approach to choral performance. As the ensemble moves through a collaborative rehearsal process, they employ theater practices to generate ideas, images, text, choreography, and musical motifs that can be woven together to embody the narrative of the work. Mike Dories sees multisensory choral music experiences as a means of outreach to younger singers and audiences who are not necessarily interested in traditional choral stand on the risers and sing concerts. He proposes fusing traditional and new choral music with complementary sensory experiences, lighting, visual art, video, and theater. On Symphony Music, a UK website that bills itself as the new, straight-talking, jargon-free website about classical music, the subtitle is Cutting Through Classical, there is an article entitled Extreme Singing, Taking It to the Limit. And my wife asked me, what is this image? This was just the image in the article. I have no idea what it's really about, but I just thought it was so cool. We are all aware that the Western classical canon tradition favors a style of singing which idealizes purity of tone, accurate intonation, and a rather specific vocal production. Other cultures have different vocal and choral priorities. The article includes examples of extreme choirs, such as ensembles producing overtones, Inuit throat singing, Finland Screaming Men Ensemble, and of course, vocal percussion bands, which have now become quite the norm. 3 symposium presentations highlighted other vocal traditions that are often challenging for choristers steeped in the Western choral tradition. Janice Talk examines the notion of singing hard in intertribal powwow singing, concluding that definitions of vocal hygiene and health are culture-specific. Soila Sariola uses improvisation, Lapland York-style singing, and Scandinavian cow calling to explore the new basis or roots of ourselves and singing. And Catherine Bowers uses the shape note singing tradition as a unique path to musical literacy. And this, if you're not familiar with the shape note movement, it is just having a huge resurgence in the U.S. with young professionals. There are, in big cities on the east coast of the U.S., there are just all these singing conventions going on all the time. I've included a section on improvisational choirs because of the work reported by Lee Willingham. You can see that Lee has been at almost every symposium. I've quoted him several times. In problematizing the conventional understanding that the choral conductor is the individual responsible for focusing and controlling the event, and challenging the notion that we, as musicians, are creative when often all we do is recreate fixed compositions, the work of others' imaginations. Working with his university choirs, Lee and his choral colleagues at Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada worked to develop a choral improvisation intelligence, which results in a concert that combines the pre-composed with the on-the-spot creating. I think this is a significant area of growth in future decades. In looking for opportunities to continue singing together after school, a lot of people find great satisfaction in specialized choirs. The special interest choirs identified through the symposium presentations include the following. Minority choirs, there were 2 studies. One was of a black chorus in an otherwise white-dominated music school. There was also an intergenerational choir in a French-speaking school in English Eastern Ontario. not surprising because of our connection with Ireland, but there were several studies about choirs adapting the solo a cappella Irish song tradition to the choral context, and so another kind of specialized choir. Two studies highlighted multi-generational choirs, and I think, again, it was interesting. I think it was Laszlo who spoke about seniors not wanting to sing by themselves in his research, but wanted to have younger singers with them, and so this perhaps would speak to that. Sorry, here Oh yes, the next one is the all-girl group, an example of an ever-popular and rapidly growing genre of small vocal ensembles. Another category, urban choir. Interesting here that these urban singers find the traditional approach to vocal pedagogy in a choral setting to be alienating and self-defeating. And so I think that we just can't always assume that everyone is going to embrace one particular choral style. And of course, then there are many LGBT choirs, exponential growth here. And lastly, in this category, perhaps the oldest kind of special interest choir, the workplace choir. And one that you might not be familiar with is the Men of the Deeps, North America's only coal miners choir from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, on the east coast of Canada. Finally, there is the phenomenon of technology and choral singing. Who knows what possibilities new technologies will bring and how we will find ways to use existing technologies in new and innovative ways. Philip Copeland, writes in the U.S., talks about two kinds of immigrants, or people, the digital native and the digital immigrant. Probably no question as to where we fit. And so I think that those of us who are the digital immigrants are going to need to find ways to embrace the languages and skills of the digital natives. In 1999, the symposium began experimenting with technology to access speakers who could not come to us. And then in 2005, Maria Guinan did a conducting masterclass with 3 choirs across Canada using video conferencing. So, we found that quite successful. Andrew Mercer in Newfoundland is studying singing in the online learning environment. We have 2 e-teachers in our province who teach students in isolated areas through teleconferencing, and so this is a new and exciting project. Finally, the title of Adam Adler's study about how he dealt with conducting his university course after an injury and incapacitation while convalescing at home is an image that you either fantasize about or are horrified by. Conducting pantless. Exploring internet communication to address choirs at a distance. So it seems to me that the future is bright for singing together after school. There are currently more types and varieties of choral singing ensembles than existed even 20 years ago. I think that part of this exponential growth is due to the changing demographics within countries, but more importantly, I feel that the restorative benefits of singing may be the real reason that individuals want to sing for the rest of their lives.